Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're jumping right into a pretty controversial idea about your career. We're going to talk about why working for a cool or exciting company might literally be costing you money. Like a lot of money. We call it the excitement tax, and honestly, the data we're going to look at today might totally rewire how you approach your next job hunt. Okay, let's dive into this. $21,686. That is a serious chunk of change, right? Well, that number is the exact median pay difference between a traditionally boring legacy automaker like General Motors and the super hyped, exciting EV pioneer, Tesla. Yeah, working for the cool company could be costing you over 20 grand a year. So how exactly does that happen? Let's unpack it. We've all heard it, haven't we? Find a job you love and you'll never work a day in your life. It sounds amazing. It gets pushed by school counselors and career gurus everywhere. But here's the thing. It's kind of a modern myth. Actually, it's more like a really clever strategy used to justify underpaying passionate people who are looking for emotional fulfillment from their work instead of, a fair paycheck. Part 1. The aspirational trap, or why dream jobs get away with low pay. The really crucial thing to understand here is what actually goes on inside aspirational industries, stuff like gaming, fashion, travel, and sports. You might be picturing yourself at glamorous fashion weeks or just playing video games all day. But the reality? It's often pretty brutal. These big-name companies absolutely weaponize your passion against your well-being. That means unpaid overtime expectations, toxic management that gets a pass, and, as we're going to prove with the numbers in a minute, comparatively low pay. Which brings us to part 2, the supply of martyrs and the endless line of candidates. Because these companies have so much prestige, they know people are desperate to get a foot in the door. If you aren't willing to put up with the insane crunch culture or the terrible pay, guess what? There are dozens, maybe hundreds of equally qualified candidates standing right behind you, just eager to take your place so they can brag about having a dream job. Turnover is sky high, and these companies honestly have zero incentive to treat you well because your replacement is literally already waiting in the lobby. And hey, even if you do land the job, the glamour wears off fast. Being a game tester doesn't mean playing the hottest new release for fun. It's playing the exact same broken, buggy mission over and over again for weeks. Working for an NFL team? Most of the staff just sit in a standard office answering emails all day, just like everybody else. Having to do anything for 40 hours a week just to keep a roof over your head has a funny way of turning something you love into a really miserable, boring grind. All right, part 3, the excitement tax and the cold, hard salary numbers. Let's step away from the theory for a second and look at the undeniable proof in the auto industry, using data from 2018. The median employee at Ford made over $64,000. At General Motors, it was nearly $78,000. These are your traditional, boring legacy companies. But then you look at Tesla, universally seen as this exciting, world-changing company, and their median employee made just over $56,000. The boring companies pay way more. When a company has a massive surplus of fans wanting to work there, they absolutely can and will pay you less. And this pattern holds up across the entire economy. Take the tech sector. Your standard web developer managing back-end corporate databases is on average going to significantly out-earn a game developer who's grinding away on the next blockbuster video game. We see the exact same thing in marketing. A marketing manager at a massive, incredibly corporate oil company like Exxon is going to take home a much bigger paycheck than someone doing the same job for a glamorous professional sports franchise like the New England Patriots. Even in administrative roles, the trend is there. An administrative assistant at a standard retail bank will, on average, earn more than an admin at a high-fashion, high-prestige magazine like Vanity Fair. The takeaway here is pretty undeniable. Boring just pays better. Moving on to part 4, the boring manager advantage, experienced managers, and work-life balance. You see, the perks of a dull job aren't just financial. Who you report to drastically changes your day-to-day life. Think about it. At a boring company, your manager probably has decades of experience. They treat the job as a way to put food on the table, not some grand crusade. They aren't trying to aggressively claw their way up the ladder, so they don't take it personally if you ask for a raise or try to log off at 5 p.m. Now contrast that with the manager at the exciting startup who's completely drunk the "we're changing the world" Kool-Aid. They expect you to work yourself to the bone, and worse, they'll often try to pass off their own toxic behavior or verbal abuse as just being passionate.
There's that famous workplace saying, people don't quit jobs, they quit managers.
Working at a boring company gives you a drastically better shot at finding a stable, experienced manager who actually knows what they're doing, feels secure, and isn't going to make your life a living hell. So, just to summarize the concrete perks of a boring job. First, you're looking at less competition, making it easier to get hired. Second, as we've clearly seen, higher average pay. Third, grounded, experienced management. And fourth, way healthier work-life boundaries. It's funny. That 1999 comedy Office Space was supposed to be this huge mockery of corporate drudgery. But looking back at it now, Peter's cubicle, his extended lunches, and his strict weekend boundaries actually look like a pretty sweet deal compared to today's open office hustle culture. Which brings us to part 5, hobbies versus careers and beating the prestige tax. Here's the harsh truth. Corporate prestige is mostly an illusion. If you take a pay cut just to work for a famous brand, who is really benefiting? Definitely not you. You're not even going to see that fancy company logo on the side of the building from your cubicle anyway. You are literally sacrificing real spendable dollars for an imaginary status symbol. So I really want you to stop and ask yourself this. Are you working to maximize the money you earn, or are you actively paying your employer a tax just for the privilege of their prestige? Because if you're doing a job to make money, which most of us are, you should be maximizing the amount of money you get for your time. Ultimately, the absolute smartest move you can make for your wallet and your mental health is to stop letting prestige rob your bank account. Go ahead and choose the boring job that pays you well, respects your boundaries, and actually leaves you with the energy and the funds to do the things you love on your own time. Let other people make the mistake of turning their hobbies into a stressful career. You go out there and get paid. So before you send out your next resume, ask yourself, what is your peace of mind really worth? Thanks for joining me for this explainer, and I hope it gives you a totally new perspective on your career.